Hey all! In this video, I'll be describing my process for boosting territory standing with Arcana. Unlike a lot of other methods that involve wicker baskets, furnishing stain, or hearty meals, I make infused Alkahest and Regeneration potions to grind tons of standing while still turning a pretty serious profit. I did make a video on this topic about 6 months ago, but now that same server alts and territory boosters are a thing, I thought it'd be worth going into a little more detail. The short version is this. I stockpile materials for Infused Alkahest and Infused Regeneration potion, and from there I grab a music buff, activate a standing booster, and craft as many as humanly possible in that 2-hour window. Making the Alkahest gets me the majority of my territory standing, while making the potions gets me additional standing plus a ton of Arcana aptitude crates. I recover most of the cost immediately by selling what's inside the crates, and once I've sold all the potions, which takes longer, I've usually made a decent profit, or in the absolute worst case, broken even. My math's a little rough since the actual amount varies based on multicrafts and how high you're starting with the territory you're boosting, but if you're running a standing booster and the Territorial Triumph music buff, I'd say 35,000 Alkahest and 35,000 potions should get you maxed out, or close, with a single territory. In terms of prep, the first thing you need to worry about is storage. Lots of it. 10,000 hyssop weighs 1,000 pounds, and since I like to try and max at least one territory with each booster, we're talking well over 300,000 hyssop. The rest of the mats aren't exactly weightless either. You'll want tens of thousands each of Azoth water, regular water, medicinal, life, and soul reagents. It adds up. That being said, my strategy does rely on having one trustworthy friend to help you store things and transfer things. Since you can make multiple characters on the same server now, one alt gives you access to up to 200,000 pounds of storage space, even without houses. It might take a couple hours, but if you can get someone to escort you to each town and outpost, or if you can escort a friend, all of that storage on their alt can be yours to work with. Just be aware that when you're a low level in a much higher zone, dying instantly sends you back to the nearest respawn. So place camps often, steer clear of areas with bow and musket enemies, and try and enjoy the challenge. It's possible to make the run alone, but the danger is real, and dodging is everything. I did it alone once on a level 20-something, and I'm really not sure I'd put myself through that again. Speaking of levels, you want your alt to be at least level 20 by the time you're ready to trade stuff over. That's because you'll need a level 20 bag just to be able to carry a half stack of hyssop, or level 30 to unlock a second bag slot if you want to carry a full stack at a time, for your convenience. As far as getting the materials, hyssop is the only thing I place buy orders for, since they always get filled. I don't have the patience to monitor the trading posts throughout the day, but if you have the time and the patience, I'll bet you can save a lot more coin than I do. I've listed my ideal price per unit for each material, but when I'm feeling impatient, I do buy these at up to twice the amount. For life reagents, life motes and tangle wisp are typically the cheapest, but for medicinal and soul, your options are far more varied. Buy orders are probably the most efficient, but I've done just fine scanning for things like Soul Sprout Stem, Gleaming Lodestone, Halibut Viscera, and others, and just scooping up anything I can find cheaply. It's worth noting that some of these weigh a lot more than others, like the Gleaming and Crystalline Lodestone, but sometimes that's the cost of getting a good deal fast. Now for the crafting part. First, make sure you get the max rank of Territorial Triumph, the music buff. I don't think it matters what difficulty it's played at, just how many stars. If you stockpiled like I have, you might think the booster's 2-hour duration is more than enough time, but your time spent trading, crafting, and sprinting or waddling between storage and Arcana stations will eat that up like it's nothing. For the first 30, maybe 50 levels of standing, only make a few hundred Alkahest at a time so you can actually stop to select your cards and increase your standing gain further. After that point, you start to see diminishing returns to the point where each new standing card will only give you another 0.5% increase, which really isn't that much. At this point, I'll just start churning out Alkahest as fast as humanly possible, usually over 2,000 at a time, picking a dozen or so cards between each batch. As far as what cards I prioritize, I personally prefer housing items over standing gain, over increased storage, over crafting or trading tax, over gathering speed. After I've made all the Alkahest, I go ahead with the potions. Depending on how many you're making, you might think about using a friend, an alt, or a friend's alt to store some away as you make them. Since multicraft is a thing, you'll probably be selling these potions for a long time. I personally consider it a win if I can get at least 4 coins per potion, and if I'm on just before a war, invasion, or the weekly mutation turnover, I've seen as much as 12 coins per unit, but my average is probably closer to 7 or 8. Since I usually end up with thousands of multicraft Alkahest, I end up having to buy more medicinal, life, and soul reagents to craft them before the booster runs out, but you can prepare for this by simply stockpiling more ahead of time. Now, after everything's crafted and stored away, it's time for the unboxing. I forget exactly how many potions I made during this last boost. I want to guess at least 80,000, maybe as high as 100,000, but it got me just over 100 Arcana aptitude levels, which means I get to open 300 crates. Right away, you're guaranteed a lot of Asmodium, Runic Leather, Phoenix Weave, and Glittering Ebony, which give significant returns. I just fill buy orders because I want my money and I want it now, but if you have the patience to sell them slowly, you could make far more from them than I do. There are only a few craft mods from the crates that are actually worth selling, at least on my server, and the important ones are Brilliant Animus and Star Metal Weaponsmith's Charm. I can usually sell these for 3 to 5k each depending on the market, and that really adds up. Besides that, Whetstone, Shining Animus, and Draft of Wolf Essence occasionally sell for a bit, but they're a drop in the bucket compared to the first two. I get a bit more standing by refining the wisps and essences from the crates, which then I go on to sell or use to cut pristine gems with. And finally, I end up with lots of Arcana clothing patterns, which can be worth over 1,000 each on the right day if people are actually buying them. And I think that just about covers everything. As a side note, if I recall, the devs have promised on at least 2 occasions that we'll be allowed to re-roll our cards at some point, so I'm pretty eager to replace all this standing gain with increased storage and discounts. Hopefully you found this video useful. If I've been unclear or left anything out, feel free to leave me a question in the comments, and I'll answer as best I can. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and good luck.